take 100. Demand. Let's get started. Hello, hello, hello. All right. The topics under demand. Well, first we'll see an introduction to markets and prices. Now, I'm going to be speaking about a specific type of market here. The competitive market, the perfectly competitive market. Then we'll take a look at the anatomy of demand. We'll see the demand curve, we'll see the demand schedule, and we'll learn an interesting concept called the law of demand. After that, we will understand what it takes to get the market demand. If you're just looking at demand from individuals, you're basically going to sum them up, okay? Then we'll compare a change in demand versus a change in quantity demanded. It's very important that you note the difference between a change in demand and a change in quantity demanded. After that, we are going to see some factors that influence the demand curve. Income, taste and preferences, number of buyers, expectations, and prices of substitutes and complement goods. These all affect how the demand curve, the entire demand curve will behave. Okay, so yeah, let's jump in. Introduction to markets and prices. Again, we are dealing with here the perfectly competitive market. You're going to see 4 markets in this class. The perfectly competitive market is the first one and possibly the easiest one to understand. And on top of that, we will build the other 4 markets, right? We will try to figure out how the perfectly competitive market is different from the other 3. Okay, so you're going to think of markets as a spectrum, and I'm just going to draw right here. We have a spectrum of markets. On this far end, to my left here, we have perfectly competitive market. Now, if you didn't figure out, I'm writing on the slide, so you really want to have your eyes fixed on the slides so you're not playing it like a podcast in the background, right? Okay, perfectly competitive markets. And on the other end, we have monopoly. You have heard of monopoly. Say if you've taken macro, you've heard of these too, possibly. Now, in the middle, we have 2 other markets. I'm not going to go into that now, but I want you to see where we are. So we are here right now. Demand and supply, the demand and supply we are talking about rests on the shoulder of perfectly competitive markets. Okay? All right. What is a market? To yourself right now, just think of one word that comes to mind when you think market. Some of you are probably thinking Amazon, online, right? Some of you are thinking Walmart, Target, TJ Maxx. Oh, that's my favorite place. See, market is a place where buyers will meet to interact and trade goods, services, resources. It's a place. The place can be a virtual place, but it's a place, right? Now, when people meet to trade goods and interact, how are the prices set? Sometimes you could bargain. So the seller is motivated to move the price up, but the buyer is motivated to push the price down. You see, so it's the pressure of both demand and supply that will set the price. So sellers don't set the prices in the perfectly competitive market. A single seller cannot set the price in perfectly competitive markets. A single buyer cannot set the price in a perfectly competitive market, but it is the pressures of all of demand and the pressures of all of supply that will interact and set the prices. How? Have you heard of the invisible hand? Yeah. So the butcher did not wake up with benevolence in his heart. That, hey, I need to feed Dr. Topa today. No. The butcher, right, is interested in feeding his own family. And so he butchered these animals and we went to buy it. Do you see? So people, as they pursue their self-interest, somehow interact with others, and at the end of the day, the social interest, where those who want to buy would have purchased and those who want to sell would have sold, that social happens. It's pretty interesting if you think about it. Prices and quantities are traded are determined by the interactions of the many buyers that form the demand and the many sellers that form the supply in a competitive market. Right, so that's the key takeaway from the slides we have worked on so far. And what is the key takeaway here? That one seller cannot set the price. One buyer cannot set the price. Many buyers and many sellers under both demand and supply. So many buyers under demand, many sellers under supply interact, and those pressures determine the price in a competitive market. This is why I drew the spectrum of markets. We are not talking about a monopoly here. We are talking about the perfectly competitive market. Okay? Let's move on. And now we jump to the anatomy of a demand curve. When you take a demand curve, can we pull it apart? And if we can, what are the things we can learn from it? Let's take a look. First, we learn a principle or a concept called the law of demand. The law of demand says that quantity demanded and price of the good are inversely related. So as the price of a good goes up, the quantity demanded of the good will fall. The price and the quantity demanded. Note how I did not say demand will decrease when price goes up. I said quantity demanded. We will have to be very strict with ourselves in using these words carefully. As price goes up, quantity demanded falls. As quantity demanded rises, price will fall. As quantity demanded rises, price will fall. Yes, why? Because individuals like us, we love deals. Buy one, get the second one half off. You see, we love deals. The anatomy of the demand curve. The first thing we learned when we take the demand curve and we are pulling it apart, we're trying to figure out what it's all about. The first thing we learned is the principle, the law of demand. Now, the second thing is, well, how do we even draw the demand curve? Well, we need a table of information, a table of information on prices and quantities, right? So we have the price here. You can see that the price is falling, and here the quantity, as you go down the list, is rising. As you go down the list, the quantity is rising. As you go down the list, the price is falling. That is necessary for us to draw the demand curve like so. Right? Now you are looking at the drawing on your left hand side. And in this drawing, we take 16 for price, 1 for quantity demanded, and we go to the graph and we find 16 over there, 1 over here. On the grid, that's where they are. Do you see that? We have all these dots and we connect the dots with a straight line. That's the demand curve drawn. And you can see that the demand curve that we have drawn is downward sloping. And this downward sloping behavior of the demand curve means it has obeyed the law of demand. Why is the demand curve downward sloping? What exactly is this downward sloping behavior signifying? Here we go. There are 3 reasons why the demand curve will slope down. All of these are encapsulated within the law of demand, by the way. Okay, first we have income effect. Then we have diminishing marginal utility, substitution effect. These are the 3 reasons why the demand curve will slope downward. Let's take them one after the other. The income effect. Say you have a fixed income, $10, and a slice of pizza each costs $2. If for some reason your income stays fixed at $10, but a slice of pizza, the price falls from $2 to $1, you will feel richer because you can afford to buy more slices. You see, that's the income effect. Although your income did not increase, the price per item fell far enough for you to feel richer. So this is an interesting quiz question. You have $20 to spend on gas per week. Price of gas is $2 a gallon. So you can buy, how many can you buy? Well, $20 is your income. We are going to divide that by $2 per gallon. So you can buy 10 gallons. You see, so the answer is B. Now, as I'm doing these quiz questions, if I get some wrong, please let me know. Yeah, so I can go back and fix it. Okay, so keep your eyes peeled. All right. Let's say that now your price of gas increases from 2 to 4. Oh no. But you still have your $20. How many gallons can you purchase now that price has doubled? Well, your $20 divided by $4 per gallon, that's 5 gallons. So that's the answer here. You went from 10 gallons to 5 gallons. You feel poorer. Okay, you feel poorer. Okay. So that's the income effect as an example. And this is the textbook definition of income effect. It's that effect that a change in price will have on the purchasing power of your income. Our income was $20. It could purchase 10 gallons of gas if the price of gas is $2. But if gas prices double, we can only afford half. Our purchasing power will fall. Do you see that? Take a moment, pause the video if you have to, and go back to what I just said. The second reason why the demand curve is sloping down is diminishing marginal utility. We talked about this the first day we met. What exactly is utility, by the way? What is that? Utility is the satisfaction or the happiness you derive from consuming a good. So you see that happiness you feel when you take in the first slice? Yeah, that's your utility. Now, by the fifth slice, you're done with it, aren't you? Yeah. That means the additional satisfaction you are getting from the additional fifth slice, it's falling. After the first slice, every additional bite you take, the additional satisfaction you are getting is falling. So that's why we say marginal utility, as you consume more goods, diminishes. Now, for those of you who remember a little bit of math, what would this look like in graph form? Now, for my students who are weak in graphing, this is still a very good exercise for you to look at, right? So don't just skip the video here. I don't like graphs. You skip it. No, don't skip the video. Just watch what I'm going to draw, okay? We draw utility this way. So utility is graphed this way. Utility of what? Let's say good X, right? As you consume a good, your utility is going to rise, but it's going to do so at a diminishing rate. What? Watch me. Let me change the color here, right? Since I can do that. Let's change the color. Your utility will rise, but it will do so at a diminishing rate. So the curve will start out from the origin, right? And sort of climb, but it's concave, right? It's concave. Convex looks like this. This, right? This is convex. And this is concave. Well, it looks like a cave, right? So concave. That's concave. And this one on the top is convex. Okay. Is it important to know these things in econ? Yeah, it is. Okay. So that's your utility. Now, let's change the color again. Oh, okay. What about marginal utility? Can we draw marginal utility? Oh, yes, we can. Marginal utility of good X. So up here, I will have marginal utility on the y-axis of the bottom graph. Utility. Sorry, my spelling is tired today. Say this is 5 units of good X, 10 units of good X, 20, and on and on and on, right? Say this is 5, 10, 20, 25. The way this marginal utility is going to look, it's going to look like the demand curve. It's going to be downward sloping. And so we start with 5 we are going to start somewhere up here. 10 units, the additional utility you're getting is falling. 20 units, oh, you've had too much. So it's falling even still. 25 units, look, you've had too much and it's falling. So when you connect these dots down here, you're going to get a downward sloping. Let's try something in green. You're going to get a downward sloping curve in this watercolor green. Do you see that? Yeah. Looks like the demand curve. It is the demand curve. This is one of the reasons why the demand curve is downward sloping. Okay. Let's jump on to the third reason why the demand curve is downward sloping. Substitution effects. If you've ever been grocery shopping with your mom or anybody's mom or your guardian or anybody in your family list, you're going to find that you look for a good, you find that there is the cheaper version and there's the more expensive version. And what do? We always go for the cheaper one. Yeah. That's the substitution effect. That there are certain goods that can be consumed in place of another one. So if you were to go to one store and the price of pizza there is high, would you buy it? Or would you eat elsewhere? Because you can quickly check your phone and know, well, it's cheaper in store B. You see? So in this case, let's say the price of Pepsi, or let's say Pepsi versus Coca-Cola, right? These two are substitute goods. And if the price of one good increases, then you will shift your demand towards the substitute and buy that instead of the more expensive stuff. Okay, so what have we done so far? I'm just going to change my car here for a minute. So far, we have introduced demand. We learned about this interesting concept, and we saw 3 reasons why the demand curve is downward sloping. Now, sure, but how do we get market demand though? Because all we have seen so far is, well, demand curve this or demand curve that. But whose demand curve is it? Well, we could have demand for only one individual. So for example, Julia, we can have a table, the prices and the quantities that Julia will buy. We could have another individual, Martin. We could have the prices and the quantities that Martin will buy for himself. Now, how do we get the market demand? Well, we are going to sum up the quantities of Martin and Julia, and we are going to sum just the Q's, right? Just the quantities. The prices, we don't sum the prices up. It shouldn't make sense that the prices should be summed up. The prices stay fixed, you see. And so when we sum up the quantities, we get these market quantities at the same prices, 15, 10, and 5. Can we draw it? Yeah. With the total quantities for both Martin and Julia, we can draw this. We can draw that demand curve, that market demand curve, consisting of only 2 individuals. You see. Now, here are all the demand curves together. You can see there's Martin's demand curve, there's Julia's, and then there's the market demand This is the market demand. Market of only 2 individuals in this particular case. And so here it is. The market demand is obtained by summing the quantities demanded by the individuals. Now, the individuals could be firms, could be states, could be even nations at prices that are fixed over time and over a fixed time period. We move on into this portion where we need to have a distinction between what we mean by change in demand and change in quantity demanded. In economics, I typically find my students confusing these two. So let's see how we will do in this class. Change in quantity demanded has to do with movements up or down the demand curve. So if you move from this point A to that point B, well, then there is a change in quantity demanded. And what is the change? Well, quantity demanded would have increased from 100 to 200 if you move from point A to point B. Do you see that? So movement along the demand curve is known as a change in quantity demanded. All right. We already saw the law of demand, so I'm going to skip this and jump straight to changes in demand. A change in demand can take 2 forms, either an increase in demand or a decrease in demand. Now, when we say change in demand, what we mean is the entire demand curve is shifting either to the right, as in an increase, or shifting to the left, as in a decrease. So from here, right here, we are shifting the entire demand curve from D1 to D2. So this is termed a change in demand or an increase in demand. A change in demand, or to be super specific, an increase in demand. A decrease in demand is when we shift the demand curve to the left from D1 to D2 to the left, like that, as you can see on the slide. Hopefully you are looking at the slide and not playing this in the background. Okay, side by side, this is what you have. This is where I would like you to pause and try to see if you understand this. It will be great if you can draw it. It will be great to pause here and draw what is an increase in quantity demanded. Draw it by yourself, by your hand. And what is an increase in demand? Now, right here, let me insert a blank page, and how about we do it together, right? Let's do it together. Okay, so let's say decrease in quantity demanded. What should that look like versus a decrease in demand? Okay, a decrease in demand. Right, so this is where I want you to take a piece of paper and a pen. Yeah, we need to get busy on this one. Let me get rid of that. Good. Okay, so decrease in quantity demanded. Are you done drawing it? Okay, so first we have the X and Y axis. We have price on the Y axis, and we have quantity. Now we need a certain good here. Quantity of butter, say, right, on this X axis, and price of butter in dollars per case. And quantity of butter, the measurement will be in thousands of cases. Could be a wooden case or a box, right? Like a carton case. Okay. Then we draw the demand curve like that, sloping down. Now, a decrease in quantity demanded, we will need 2 points on the demand curve here. So, say this is point A. And say this is point B. So point A, let's say the price is 10 and the quantity is 2,000. So I'll just write 2 because here it's thousands of cases. All right. And in B, let's say the price is $5 per case and the quantity is 4,000 cases. A decrease in quantity demanded, right? A decrease in quantity, will that be a movement from A to B or B to A? I think I can hear you say B to A. Okay, good. Right? A decrease in quantity demanded. So we want to move that way. So we move from B to A like that. Do you see? This is how to draw it. Okay. Let's do change. I wrote demand in demand. What I want is decrease in demand. Okay, let me adjust that. Decrease in demand. Okay. So again, we just write price up here. We have quantity up here. I want you to get into that habit of labeling your graph very well, labeling the axis very well of butter in thousands of cases. So thou of cases. So that's the short form of thousands of cases. And price of butter is in dollars per case. Okay, and we have the demand curve like that. Now, to show let me label this demand curve here. So let's call this demand curve D0. Okay. All right. We want to show a decrease in the demand curve. So how are we going to shift the entire demand? To the right or to the left? To the left, right? Okay, to the left, to the left. All right. I guess to the left it is. So, let me try it. Okay, so in blue, I have my new demand curve. This will be D1, right? And in red, I'm going to use the arrow to show that it's a movement of the entire demand curve to the left, signaling a decrease in demand. Do you see this? This is what I want you to be able to pause and do by yourself, drawing the graphs by yourself. If you cannot draw graphs by yourself, you will not do well in this class, okay? All right. So I want you to do well in this class, so pause and draw. Okay. And there it is, a decrease in quantity demanded. That is what it looks like. We are getting to the final bits of demand, and then I'll do another video for supply. Okay. Determinant of demand. What does that mean? Determinant of demand. There are certain factors that influence the demand curve. There are certain factors that will cause the demand curve to shift to the left or to shift to the right. Right? So the two slides you just saw was showing us how to just draw shifts in the demand curve or shifts off the entire demand curve or movements along the demand curve. It was just getting us to learn how to draw it, right, to be comfortable. Now here we do a bit more work. We want to learn about the factors that influence the demand curve. Income is one of those factors. Does your demand for, I'm not talking about the quantity you buy, no. I'm talking about your demand at every price. Does your demand for a good change at every price? See that? Yeah, at every price. Does it change when your income changes? Yes, it should. However, the way it changes depends on whether the good is a normal good or an inferior good. What? Guys, you already know this. A normal good, let's start with an inferior good. How about that? An inferior good, say your income increases. If the good is inferior, you will decrease your demand for that inferior good. For example, Maruchan ramen noodles. Say you win the, not even win the lottery, but you get a really, really good job that pays you very well, you probably stop eating this stuff. So what is a normal good then? A normal good could be steak. Yeah, a real good steak, right? The one that melts in your mouth like butter. Come, that's one. Yep. That would be a normal good. So what is a normal good? A normal good, your demand for a normal good will go up when your income increases. Here is another determinant. I have 3 more here. Other determinants of demand: tastes and preferences. If you prefer a certain type of good more, then your demand for that good at every price should shift to the right. Tastes, right? People's tastes for certain goods may change as they age. For example, maybe people become more lactose intolerant, so their demand for dairy products will shift to the left. Do you see that? Because their tastes have changed. Number of buyers. If the number of buyers increases, then the new market demand is going to be bigger at every price. Remember, when we were drawing the market demand for Julia and Martin, right? We summed up Julia and Martin's market demand. Imagine we added 10 more people to that market. Yeah, it's going to blow up at every price. And so we'll have a shift in the demand curve, much like this one right here to the right. Expectations. Under expectations, say you are worried that the economy is going to crash, knock on wood, in the near future, and you may lose your job, all knock on wood. So what do you do now? Don't buy stuff, right? Save the money. So then your demand for various goods will decrease or shift to the left. Now, if you expect that certain goods that you really want are not going to be available in the future, what do? You buy now. So you increase your demand for those goods now. So the demand curve for those goods will shift to the right. This is what people did during COVID, right? The demand for toilet paper, it shifted to the right, so far to the right. Future prices. If you're worried future prices will go up, what do? You buy now. You increase your demand for the goods right now. So the demand curve should shift to the right if you think prices will go up in the future, buy now. Now, the prices of other goods could also affect demand and supply of a particular good. The prices of other goods could affect the demand of a particular good. Say, well, how do we classify prices of related goods? What are the related goods? Goods can be related in the sense that they are substitutes or they are complements. Substitutes is you consume one good instead of another. Complement is you consume the goods together. Okay. So substitute goods are replacements for one another. Complements are consumed together. A substitute good is, well, you take the bus or the subway. So taking the bus or taking the subway will be substitute goods. So if bus prices were to increase, then, well, demand for subway will rise. So people will shift away from the now more expensive good to the relatively cheaper one. Now, a substitute that we are currently experiencing, and a good example will be class modality, right? We are either having the class in person or virtually, right? So we'll shift to the virtual one if showing up in person is relatively more expensive, in the sense that it's risky, right? Yeah. This tells you relatively more expensive doesn't always have to do with money, but risk is also part of it. Some people can say, well, risky means you could potentially end up totaling a car and therefore paying more. Yes, they would be right to say that. Complement goods are consumed together or consumed with one another. An example will be, well, demand for college classes and demand for dorms. So if dorm prices will go, well, if dorm prices go up, then the demand for classes will fall, because dorms and college classes are consumed typically together. So if it's more expensive to live in the dorms, then, well, the probability that the student will come to that college and take classes, it falls. So demand for that college will fall. A very simple example, a complement goods will be peanut butter and jelly, right? They are consumed together. For my international students who are not aware, peanut butter and jelly on bread is consumed here in the US. You might be doing it differently in your homes, and that's fine, right? But in this class, I'll tell you what the goods are and how they are related, instead of have you figure that out. So here, if the price of peanut butter goes up, right? So down here, the price of peanut butter goes up, then the demand for the complement should fall at every price, because, well, you can't afford the other good. Why buy the one you consume with it? You see. Okay, I will stop the video here and film or record the supply video separately. Supply is not that different from demand, in the sense that we are going to study the anatomy of the supply curve. We are going to study factors that influence the supply curve, just as we did for demand, right? But this time we are talking about supply. Okay, stay tuned for that. Thank you. Bye.